Hello and welcome to this week's reading session where I read the stories compiled in this book. And for this series so far, we have been reading Hot Money by Dick Francis. It is the first story in this collection of condensed book, Reader's Digest, Volume 2, 1988. When I finished last week reading, I mentioned that we will be having a review of the five chapters. We're supposed to read chapter 5 today, so we'll have a review. We'll go over like important points in the story, that have come out so far, because this is like a mystery, although no murder has taken place, so it's not exactly a murder has taken place, but like the ultimate goal is still out of reach for the murderer in question. So we're going to do a recap, we're going to review what we know, or and I'm going to express my suspicions. I'm going to do my best to reduce the noise, but there's a lot of construction work going on, and this guy keeps hammering, and it's as if it's right outside the window. But what can we do, right? Maybe my edit stuff will be able to deal with it. Okay, I just want to say that I might retitle this as a reading skill development. Like, I've always been confident in my reading skills, like since when I started reading, in school and all of that, public reading, like reading for the class and all of that. So I used to be confident, but when I started this series, the first um day was really tough for me. Like, I was struggling to make sentences even though they were clearly there in my head. So it was not this thing where I'd gotten so used to reading in my mind, over the years, that I am not really familiar with how to read, you know like public, like outward, how do you say that, outside of your head. But the second week when I read, it was easier. You get, like, I don't know, it was easier for me to read. So I feel like the more I do it, the more I improve. So this is kind of like a personal agenda. Okay, let's continue. I read chapter 5. Stay right here, I said to all of them. I have to go into the weighing room to deal with a technicality. I dived into privacy in search of a sheet of paper and an envelope. I wrote to Malcolm. Half the family have turned up here, sent by Joyce. Stay where you are, keep out of sight, and wait until I come to fetch you. I stuck the note into the envelope, wrote Malcolm's name on the outside, and sought out an obliging official to deliver it. I went out again into the sunlight and found the five of them still faithfully waiting where I had left them. I say, Deb said, half mocking, you do look dashing in all that kit. Debs, Ferdinand's wife, had come to the races in a black leather coat belted at the waist, with shoulder-length blonde hair above and long black boots below. Ferdinand, shorter than Debs and more like Malcolm than ever, appeared to be in his usual indecision whether I was to be loved or hated. I smiled at him. Serena said forbiddingly, we want to know where Daddy is. Malcolm's little Serena, now taller than he, looked a leggy 16, not 10 years older. Her age showed only in the coldness of her manner towards me. In her high-pitched girlish voice, she said, we want him to settle very substantial sums on us all right now. We want him to settle very substantial sums on us all right now. Then he can go to blazes with the rest. I blinked. Who are you quoting? Gervais thinks is the best solution, Ferdinand said. I doubted very much that Malcolm would agree, but said only, I'll pass on your message next time he gets in touch with me. Do you know that Lucy and Edwin are here too? They were satisfactorily diverted, looking over their shoulders to see if they could spot them in the growing crowds. Ferdinand happened to be standing next to me. I said on impulse into his ear, Ferdinand, who killed Moira? He stopped looking for Lucy and Edwin and transferred his attention abruptly and wholly to me. I could see calculations going on in the pause before he answered, but I had no decoder for his thoughts. He was the most naturally congenial to me of all my brothers. I wanted Ferdinand to be as I had known him, a boy dedicated to riding a bicycle while standing on his head on the saddle. and not in a million years a murderer. I don't know who killed Moira, he said finally. Alicia says you did. She told the police it had to be you. And what do you think? I asked curiously. His eyelids flickered. Alicia says, I said abruptly, can't you think for yourself? He was offended. He took Debs and Serena by the arm and made an announcement. We three are going to have a drink and a sandwich. If you fall off and kill yourself, no one will miss you. Donald said that they too would run a sandwich to earth, and Helen added earnestly that she would care that I finish the race safely, whatever Ferdinand said. Thanks, I said, hoping I could believe her, and went back inside for an interval of thought. The problem of how to extract Malcolm unseen from the racecourse didn't end with those members of the family I talked to. One of the others, more cunning, could be hiding behind the trees, waiting to follow me when I left. The first race came and went, and in due course, I went out to partner young Higgins in the second. Joe, as usual, had red cheeks from pleasure and hope. George was gruffly businesslike, also as usual. I put Malcolm out of my mind. I put Malcolm out of my mind and also murder, and it wasn't difficult. The sky was a clear blue, the air crisp, and the track lay waiting, with the wide fences beckoning to be flown. Life and death may be serious in the real world, but life and death on a fast steeplechaser on a Friday afternoon in the autumn sunshine was a light-hearted toss-up. I fastened the strap of my helmet, was thrown up on young Higgins, and rolled him out onto the track. That moment always gave me joy. We lined up with the 7 others. Amateurs came in all guises. There were a mother, an aunt, and a grandfather riding that afternoon, besides a journalist, an earl's son, a lieutenant colonel, a show jumper, and myself. The tapes went up and we set off with 3 miles to go. Almost 2 whole circuits, 22 jumps, and an uphill run to the winning post. The aunt's horse, too strong for her, took hold of the proceedings and opened up an emphatic lead. The horse rushed into the difficult downhill first. The horse rushed into the difficult downhill The horse rushed into the difficult downhill first fence and blundered over it, which let its rider recover control, and for about a mile after that, there were no dramatic excitement. Give me room, blast you, shouted Lieutenant Colonel on one side of me. Nice day, said the Elson chattily on the other, always a clown who enlivened the surroundings. The journalist was the best jockey in the race, a professional in all but status, and the grandfather was the worst, but full of splendid reckless courage. More or less in a bunch, the whole lot of us came around the bottom bend at 30 miles an hour or so and tackled the last 3 jumps of the first circuit. The lieutenant colonel's mount made a proper hash of the last of these, jogging both of his riders' feet out of the irons. Landing alongside, I saw that the lieutenant colonel's balance was hopelessly progressing down the horse's galloping shoulder as he fought to pull himself back into the saddle. I put out an arm, grasped his jersey, and yanked him upward and backward, leaving him slowing and bumping in my wake. He said, thanks, and also, move over, you're crowding me, more or less in the same breath. After crossing the water jump, the show jumper made a spurt to the front, then slowed almost to a standstill on landing over the next fence. Having jumped especially pedantically, and the ant Having jumped over especially pedantically, and the ant crashed into him with some singularly un-ant-like language. Lovely lady, said the Elson appreciatively as he and I passed the debacle. We jumped the last of the 7 far side fences together and in front and put all our energies into staying there around the long last bend. I could hear horses thudding behind me as we approached the pond fence, and I sensed the Earl's son's horse beginning to tire. That precious winning post was far ahead, and the way to it clear, and for at least a few moments I thought I might win. But then the lieutenant colonel reappeared fast at my elbow and between the last two fences, the journalist materialized from the outback. Young Higgins, young Higgins, tired into middle-aged Higgins on the hill, and he and I finished third. Young Higgins is the name of his horse. Joe was pleased enough, patting young Higgins hard as I dismounted. Ran a great race, old boy, jumped like a stag. You would have been second, said George, who had good binoculars, if you had let the lieutenant colonel fall off. Yeah, well, I said, unbuckling the girth. There were a lot of hooves down there. George smiled. Don't forget to weigh in. Come for a drink in the owner's bar when you've changed. I accepted. It was part of the bargain. They like to relieve young Higgins' outing fence by fence in return for my ride. I returned to the weighing room area afterward and found that all the same family members were still on the race course, Lucy and Edwin included in the group now, and that they had been joined by my mother. Joyce, in fur and a green hat, was a rinsed blonde with greenish eyes that seldom missed a trick, in life as in cards. Dismayed, but blank-faced, I gave her a dutiful peck on her smooth cheek. Darling, she said, the syllables sizzling with displeasure. Did you or did you not send that weasel, Norman West, to check up on my whereabouts last Friday? Well, I said, half smiling. I wouldn't have put it as crudely. Why? She snapped. Malcolm was very nearly killed, I said flatly. He and I asked Norman West to make sure that none of you could have done it. Joyce demanded to be told what had happened to Malcolm, and I told her. She and all the others listened with open mouth, and if there was knowledge, I couldn't discern it. Poor Daddy, Serena exclaimed. How beastly. A matter for the police, Donald said forcefully. I agree, I said, but when the police make their inquiries, they don't exactly report the results to Malcolm. He wants to make sure for himself that none of the family was at Quantum last Friday afternoon. If you cooperate with Norman West when he gets to you, you set Malcolm's mind at rest. And what if we can't prove where we were? Davis asked. Malcolm will have to live with it, Joyce said crisply. Living with it would present him less problem, I said dryly. It's dying he wants to avoid. They stared at me in silence. The reality of Moira's murder had been to them, I guess, as to me, a slow burning fuse. Perhaps we had clung to the motiveless intruder from outside theory at first, because the alternative was surely unthinkable. But in the weeks since then, they must at least have begun to wonder. The fuse would hit soon into active suspicions, which might tear apart and finally scatter forever the fragile family fabric. Was there a fabric before? I've not seen the fabric. I've not noticed the fabric. Would I mind? I thought, exactly. The answer, surprisingly enough, was yes. Imperfect as it was, the family represented origins and framework, the geography of living. Moira, ungrieved, was already rewriting that map, and if her murderer remained forever undiscovered, if Malcolm himself, I couldn't think of it, was killed, there would be no healing, no reforming, no contact, just a lot of severed galaxies moving inexorably apart. Find me a drink, darling, Joyce commanded. We're in deep trouble. She began to move off, but the others showed no signs of following. I looked at the seven anxious faces and saw them already move away, begin to move slightly away from each other. I'll tell Malcolm your fears, I said, and your needs. I shrugged ruefully and went after Joyce. In the busy members bar, I bought her a large vodka and tonic, with a plain ginger ale for myself, and we found a table in a far corner. There she launched into her inquisition. Where is your father? She said. I don't know, I said. You're lying. Why do you want to find him? Why? She was astonished. Because he's out of his mind. She dug into her handbag and brought out a small piece of newspaper. A stiff paragraph without headline or provenance. It said, second string British contender is Blue Clancy, second in last year's Derby, and winner this year of Royal Ascot King Edward VII Stakes. Owner Ramsey Osborne yesterday hedged his arc bet by selling half a share in his 4-year-old colt to arbitrator Malcolm Pembroke, who launched into bloodstock only this week with a 2 million guinea yearling at the premium sales. Ouch, I thought. And my mother asked, is it true? Yes. Malcolm bought half of Blue Clancy. Why shouldn't he? She said forcefully, you know perfectly well he's just throwing his money away to spite everybody. He didn't like Moira being killed. He didn't like being attacked himself. I shouldn't think he will stop spending until he knows whether we have or haven't a murderer in the family. And even then, I smiled. He's getting a taste for it. Joyce stared. Moira was murdered by an intruder, she said. She took a large swallow of her vodka and tonic and looked at me bleakly. She had been barely 20 when I was born, barely 19 when Malcolm had whisked her headlong from an antique shop in Kensington and installed her in his house. Malcolm, telling me about those days, had said she could beat me at cards, you see, and she looked so young, not bossy at all like she was later. It was an impulse, marrying Joyce. Turned out she didn't like the conjugal obligations much. So I went on seeing Alicia. Well, I would, wouldn't I? Joyce and I got on all right until she found out about Alicia. She said Alicia robbed her of her self-esteem and she's never forgiven her, has she? Joyce had returned to the town in Surrey where her parents had lived and earned herself a measure of celebrity through her bridge tournament forays. And no, had never forgiven Alicia. She said presently, do you really think one of the family is capable of murder? It doesn't seem possible. Well, I said, take them one by one. Tell me why it's impossible in each individual case, according to each person's character. Start at the beginning with Vivian. No, Ian, she protested. Yes, I said. Help me. Help Malcolm. Help us all. She gave me a long, worried look, oblivious to the movement and noise going all around us. Vivian, she said, is practically dim-witted, full of self-pity, and why would she do it? For her three wimpish offspring? Impossible. All right, I said. How about Donald and Helen? Donald's a pompous snob, and I think Helen would fight like a fury to save her cubs from physical harm. But Moira wasn't threatening her cubs, not directly. I wondered if she knew about the school fees crisis, if they hadn't directly told her. She had got their situation remarkably right. Lucy, I said, Lucy thinks everyone's inferior to herself, especially if they have more money. Joyce frowned. Edwin, Edwin isn't impossible, I asked. He never gets time off from running errands, not enough time anyway for waiting around to catch Moira in her glass house. Alright then, I said. What about Thomas? Thomas, Joyce's face looked blank. Joyce's face looked almost sad. I liked him best of the three when he was little. Who knows why he married Berenice? She will badger him into the grave before he inherits, and then where will she be? Joyce finished her vodka and said, I don't like doing this, Ian, and I'm stopping right here. Thomas, I thought. She wasn't sure about Thomas. The analysis had all of a sudden come to an unwelcome, unexpected abyss. Another drink, I suggested. Yes, Gervais is drinking, you know. He always drinks. Ursula telephoned me to ask for advice. Did she really? I was surprised. Why didn't she ask her mother-in-law? Ursula detests Alicia, Joyce said. We have that in common. Ursula and I have become quite good friends. Amazing, I thought, and stood up to fetch the refills. Joyce's eyes suddenly widened as she looked beyond me. I knew you were lying, she said bitterly. There's Malcolm. I turned, not knowing whether to be frightened or merely irritated. Malcolm hadn't seen Joyce. He was looking solely for a drink. I made my way to the bar and took him by the arm. Why aren't you upstairs? I said. I was outstaying my welcome, old chap. I've been up there 3 bloody hours. Why didn't you come and fetch me? Joyce, I said grimly, is sitting over there in the corner. Joyce, he turned and spotted her looking balefully at us. Prowling around outside, we also have Donald and Helen, Lucy and Edwin, Ferdinand and Debs, and Serena. He looked apprehensive, as well he might. We'll just tell them all that I'm here. We'll see if we can stop it. I said, Scotch? He nodded, and I squeezed through the throng by the bar and eventually got served. He helped me carry the glasses and bottles back to the table. I fetched another chair from nearby and joined my ever non-loving parents. Before you start shouting at each other, I said, let's take two things for granted. Joyce wants Malcolm to stop scattering largesse. Malcolm wants to leave. Both ends are more likely to be achieved if we discover who murdered Moira. In case it is Moira's murderer who wishes also to kill Malcolm. Okay for logic? They both looked at me with the sort of surprise parents reserve for unexpected utterances from their young. We might, as a family, I continued, have been able to overcome Moira's murder by making ourselves believe in the motiveless unknown outside intruder theory. But two such murders are so statistically improbable as to be out of sight. The police haven't found Moira's murderer, which is why we engaged Norman West. I looked directly at Joyce. Stop fussing over what Malcolm is spending and start thinking of ways to save his life, if only so that he can make more money. Ian, she was shocked. You roused the whole family this morning on the telephone, I said to her, telling them where to find me. And now seven of them that we know of are here, and others may be. Much though we hate the idea, Moira's murderer may be here. Well, you, my darling mother, brought the whole pack to the races. So now you'd better help Malcolm leave before they catch him. Do you have any ideas? Malcolm asked me hopefully. Yes, I do. But we have to have Joyce's help, plus her promise of silence. My mother gave assurances almost meekly. Any of the family may turn up at the moment, I said, so we best lose no time. I'm going to leave you both just for a few minutes. Whatever happens, stay right here, okay? They both nodded and I left them looking wearily at each other in the first tete-a-tete they had shared for many a long year. I went in search of the catering director whom I knew and told him my father badly needed an immediate inconspicuous exit from the race course. Not skipping his bookie, I hope, the caterer said laconically. No, he wants to elope with my mother, his ex-wife, from under the eyes of his family. The caterer, amused, laughed when I told him my plan and told me to put it into operation. I went back to collect Malcolm and to ask Joyce to fetch her car and to drive it to where the caterers parked their vans. The two of them seemed relieved at my reappearance, and Joyce picked up a handbag with alacrity to go for her car. In the quiet private space at the rear of the bar, the catering director was watching the chef remove his white coat and tall hat. A handout for the chef, I said in Malcolm's ear. Have Joyce drop you at a railway station. I'll see you in the Savoy. Malcolm, looking slightly dazed, put on the chef's coat and hat and pulled out his wallet. The chef looked delighted with the result and went back to slicing his turkeys in temporary shirt sleeves. Malcolm and the catering director left through the bar's rear door. I waited quite a long, anxious time, but eventually the catering director returned carrying the white disguise. Your father got off safely, he assured me, smiling. He shook my hand and went away, and with a couple of deep breaths, I left the members bar and walked back to the weighing room to pick up my gear. George and Joe were there when I came out, saying they had thought they'd catch me before I left. We've decided to run Young Higgins again 2 weeks tomorrow at Kenton Park, Joe said. You'll be free for that, won't you? Yes, indeed. And Park Railings, remember, at Cheltenham on Thursday. It occurred to me as they walked away, looking back and waving, that perhaps I'll be in Singapore, Australia, or Timbuktu then. Life was uncertain, and that was its seduction. I saw none of the family on my way to the exit, and with a sigh of relief, I set off for my flat to fetch my mail and listen to messages. It wasn't until I'd gone a fair distance that I realized that every time I glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw the same car. Perhaps, I thought sensibly, the driver was merely going to Epsom, but at my own pace. So at the next traffic light, I turned left and kept turning left at each crossroads thereafter. I didn't hurry, but when I was back on the road to Epsom, the car was still on my tail. We were already on the outskirts of the town, and almost automatically, I threaded my way around corners, going toward my flat. I had no reason not to, I thought. I wasn't leading my follower to Malcolm, if that was what he had in mind. I drove on past my home and turned fast into the driveway of a house opposite. That particular house had a narrow exit drive into the next avenue. I drove straight through, turned, raced around two corners, and returned to my own road to come up behind the car that had been following me. It was awkwardly parked, brake lights still shining. I drew to a halt right behind it, climbed out, took 3 or 4 swift strides, and opened the door on the driver's side. There was a stark moment of silence. Then I said, "Well, well, well," nodded up towards my flat and added, "Come on in. If I had known you were coming, I would have baked the cake." Debs giggled. Ferdinand, who had been driving, looked sheepish. Serena, unrepentant, said, "Is Daddy here?" They came up to my flat where they could see pretty clearly that no, Daddy wasn't. "You knew I was following you, didn't you?" said Ferdinand. "Yes," I said. "Like a drink?" "Well, scotch, no ice." I nodded and poured from a bottle I kept in the cupboard. The two girls were poking about in the kitchen and bedrooms, opening doors and drawers in search of residues of Malcolm. Ferdinand shrugged, seeing my unconcern. "He hasn't been here at all, has he?" he said. "Not for 3 years." "Where is he?" I didn't answer. "We'll have to torture you into telling," said Ferdinand. "It was a frivolous threat we used often in our childhood." Ferdinand himself looked surprised that it had surfaced. I said, "As in the tool shed?" "Gee," Ferdinand said, "I didn't mean, I should absolutely hope not." We both remembered, though, the rainy afternoon when Gervais had put the threat into operation, trying to make me tell him where I had hidden my new cricket bat that he coveted. I hadn't told him. Ferdinand had been there too, frightened of Gervais to protest, and also Serena, barely 4, wide-eyed and uncomprehending. "I thought you'd forgotten," Ferdinand said. "Boys will be bullies. Gervais still is. Which of us which of us was not as he had been in the Green Garden? Donald, Lucy, Thomas, Gervais, Ferdinand, Serena, all playing there long ago. Children's voices calling through the bushes. The adults we would become already forming in the gangling limbs, smooth faces, groping minds. None of those children, I thought protestingly, could have killed. Serena and Debs came into the sitting room, having found nothing that could incriminate Malcolm or me. Ferdinand drained the scotch. "We finished here," he said, as if to imply that any semi-thaw that I might have felt was now at an end. "If you cut us out with Malcolm, you'll live to regret it." Hot despite myself and with a touch of acid, I asked, "Is that again what Alicia says?" Debs gave me a mock gruesome look as they made for the door. "You are Alicia's #1 villain, Lovey. You keep your hooks off Malcolm's money or you won't know what hits you." There was a fierce last-minute threat in her words, and her eyes were just as unfriendly. With regret, I watched from the window as the three of them climbed into Ferdinand's car and drove off. I checked around the flat, opened a few letters, and listened to the answering machine. Except for a message from a lady friend I saw occasionally, there was nothing of note. I spent a while thinking about cars. I had arranged that hotel in Cambridge. Okay. I had arranged that the hotel in Cambridge would allow my own car to remain in their park for a daily fee, but I couldn't leave it there forever. I could go up to London by train. In the morning, I would go by train to Cambridge, fetch my car, drive back to the flat, change to the hired car, and drive that back to London. It might even be safer, considering that Ferdinand would know its color, make, and number, to turn that car in and hire a different one. So, end of chapter 5. There's also something I just thought of when I saw the word alacrity and laconically. I was like, maybe I should make a, I don't know, vocabulary of words, I guess. I think there's a dictionary here. We have Merriam-Webster's dictionary, but it's very, very old. And I don't even know if it's here anymore because we borrowed a lot of these books out, and I don't think it was returned. Okay. Ta-da! I remember when I used to read this book and read this dictionary literature, it was so interesting because like I would see so many new words like and it had images. Oh, it's so dusty. God. And I like the way the index is like this index, like that time when books were really like made with a lot of effort, and you'd see indexes like this. The letterings were black and shiny gold, but now most of it is worn out. Most of it is worn out. I don't know if you can see the letter. Okay, so hey, don't want it to spoil. This is E and F. Like you can see how nice it was, like so much effort made into it, but look, most of it has fallen out, and I spent some time writing the letters myself, like OPN. Wow, so much memories. So let's check for the meaning of laconic, or let's start with alacrity. Even though I have an idea of what it means, I have an idea of what it means, like in context of the sentence, but let's just be sure. What would you take me? Not I've seen it. Alacrity. And the interesting about the dictionary, I had fun about reading it. It was the Latin transcriptions of it. There was the Latin transcription of the word. Maybe I think the etymology of the word. There's the phonetic inscription of it for pronunciation, and yeah. Okay. So what's the meaning of alacrity? Cheerful willingness. That's the first translation. First meaning. Second meaning, speed or quickness. So like, can we find what Joyce said with alacrity again? So the second definition of alacrity is speed or quickness, and I was looking for, maybe she said something like with alacrity or something, but no, it was an action she performed. Um, when Joyce was supposed to go out with Malcolm, like to leave the bar with Malcolm, the sentence goes, and Joyce picked up her handbag with alacrity to go for her car. So speed or quickness, basically. Then the second word I want to check for is laconically. Not skipping his bookie, I hope. The caterer said laconically. Like you can already imagine the context of it here, but let's just get a specific meaning from our dictionary. God, I just love the text, the font, so satisfying to look at. I read dictionaries when I was like bored and I didn't have any new book, around. I would just pick up the dictionary and start looking at flowers, because I think there is an appendix of certain, like, I think it was, they had like, see the pictures of the flowers. They would the, There'll be a word that is used to describe the flower, or the name of the flower, and they will put like the picture there. I don't know if it's flower or flora, anyone, all of that. But let's look for laconically. I'm getting distracted. Yes, laconic. There is laconic, there is laconism, but let's read laconic. In Latin, laconicus. In Greek, laconicus. I don't know how to pronounce Greek alphabet, but either way, the spellings are very different. Like there's a K in everything, and there's no U in the Greek spelling. From the reputation of the Spartans for brevity of speech. So the meaning, using or marked by the use of few words, concise. Basically, laconic means concise. Laconically, adverb. Laconism is a noun, and it describes a terse or succinct style or expression. So when the caterer said, not skipping his book here, I hope, the caterer said laconically. Like, what was that supposed to mean? Me, I actually imagined it was like maybe speaking in a very loose manner, like his speech was being like slow or something, but it meant to be concise. So maybe he just said it really fast, not skipping his book here, I hope. Basically, that's me of laconically and alacrity. So we've learned two new words from today. There are other words that I saw that I was not like I was not familiar with them, but I wanted to be specific about the meaning of it to get. So maybe going forward as I read, I'll still be picking like vocabulary and all. So this is done. Merriam's Webster's New Riverside University Dictionary. I miss you, old chap. So putting it back in place, let's go ahead with a review of the plot so far. So, like I mentioned in the very first video in this series, the book comes with illustration. The story comes, this entire collection, each story has illustrations of characters and important parts of the book, of the stories. So for this story, there is a family tree basically of Malcolm Pembroke, where like his wives and their children, and their spouses, all of that. So I'm going to put up the picture, and I'm just going to like walk you through them. So Malcolm Pembroke is the head of the family in figure or whatever. He's a man, and he married Vivian first. Vivian was his first wife. So Vivian has three children: Donald, Lucy, and Thomas. Donald is married to Helen, Lucy is married to Edwin, and Thomas is married to Berenice. Then next we have the next wife, Joyce. Joyce had only Ian. Then the third wife is Alicia. Alicia has Gervase, Ferdinand, and Serena. Gervase is married to Ursula. Ferdinand is married to Debs. Serena is not yet married. Then the next wife was Kuchi. Kuchi is deceased, but she has two boys, but she had two kids, Robin and Peter. Robin is still alive. Peter is deceased. And then the last wife was Moira. Moira is deceased with no offspring. So that's the family tree of Malcolm. And the plot so far for me, like I'm seeing, like what I can see so far is that Kuchi might have been the start of these murders, not Moira, because the way the way Ian, who is, and his perspective we are seeing from here. So the way Ian described Kuchi's presence in Malcolm's life, she was obviously going to be a really big, like, obstacle to people that were looking to inherit Malcolm's wealth. Like, picture it now, someone that wants Malcolm to just share his money for them, you get, and they expect him to just live a wild life, just spend his money on women, and then at the end of the day his assets will not have proper planning, it will just randomly shared for his offspring or his family, and so now a woman comes in, and the woman is not like the other women. She's serious about Malcolm, she's serious about the relationship, and so she creates boundaries. She's the reason why Malcolm chased the other wives out of the house, like they should go and find their own living spaces, as in he provided for them, but they left the main house. That's Kuchi's presence. And she changed the whole decor of the house to suit her. She put her foot down in so many ways, and I think Ian said it in chapters 2 or something, where describing Kuchi's life and her relationship, and why Kuchi felt more like a mother to him than his own mother, Joyce. So I feel like that's where the mother started from, which is something they will have to come to. But then again, I'm suspicious of Robin. Robin is Kuchi's only surviving child, but he's described as like the accident that killed his mother and his brother left him like intellectually stunted. You get, so he can't like elucidate words, he has moments of lucidity, but he's not always there, that kind of thing. So, and he's in a nursing home far away from the machinations of the family, so it seems like, but I suspect him, I don't know, for some reason, because when Malcolm was talking to Ian about Robin, Ian was going like, oh, Robin has moments where he's frustrated and he wants him to blow a balloon and bust it. And Malcolm was surprised because he had never noticed like anything like frustration with Robin, Robin expressing himself to him in any way. But then again, Malcolm is this kind of no frills kind of father. Like, it doesn't seem like someone that would pay attention to details like that, or would notice details like that, like unlike Ian, you get. And then I also suspect, like, that's my own suspicion. So and then I suspect that, I don't know, the gardener at Obelbu, which is like an obvious suspect, so like obvious, or like the gardener, but the way the gardener was insisting, why I'm suspecting the gardener is because of the way, like, Arthur Bell Brooks, I'm going to put this picture here. Why I suspect Arthur Bell Brooks is because of how he was so insistent on Arthur's insistence on finding the opening to Ian's private room, special room in the house. And I'm like, that insistence is very abnormal. Like, why are you insisting on somebody that you just met? He was almost going to shoot him, thinking he was a stranger, and now you know that he's not a stranger. And what kind of familiarity do you have to the extent that you're like, open it now to store apples? Like, okay, go and find another place to store apples. You are living in this whole house. Don't tell me that there's no other place you can find to store apples. Why do you want to like check the secret room? And that was even before Malcolm now went ahead to tell Ian. Later when Ian was narrating the whole experience, and Malcolm went to tell Ian. Malcolm now told Ian that he has hidden gold bars in that room. So like I don't know. I feel like Arthur might suspect that there's something valuable there. Maybe he has seen Malcolm stuffing some things there before, or heard some kind of movement there before, that he suspects something must be there. You get, because he's used to his owners, his employer's wealth. So who else do I suspect? Then among the children, I don't know that the children, the only person I suspect is Robin. But like maybe the more I get to know the children, because all of them are obviously like expressing themselves how they want the man to just give them their money, you get, but he's still alive. So it's very callous, and which he has married how many wives, and his children are not like, nobody expects him to be close to his children in that way. But yeah, like the way they just bluntly ask for their money, it's like, bro, this man not yet dead yet. You get, why are you asking for him to share the money? So if you share the money now and you make more money and people have used up your own money, or the people are using your money like to collect, will you still asking for money? Will you still be obligated to leave an inheritance for you? Me, I'm not siding Malcolm. Malcolm is not important to me. Malcolm is only important to me in the sense of who wants to off him, who wants to murder him, you get. So it's like, okay, who else do I suspect? So I suspect Robin, I suspect Arthur Bell-Brooks, and I suspect I don't the children. Serena is kind of shady. She's giving this energy of like she's able to play a part in a game. Like she's able to be used. She's someone that looks like she will willingly be used for stuff like that. Among the wives, Alicia is so obviously gone, but I suspect Vivian, because like it's basically of the principle of like it's people that you don't suspect the most, the people that you ignore the most, or you look over the most, that are actually the ones that are capable of plotting such devious kind of you know schemes and all. But then again, Moira's killing and Kuchi's killing might have been two different people, but the same motivation. Moira's killing might have been done by Alicia, but Alicia is too obvious. You get, Alicia is too obvious. She's so obviously a hater and all, and it's like, okay, will she have the energy to come and kill her in that fashion? Alicia seems the one that she would just take a gun straight up and shoot her in the face, like where everybody can see. That's how she's. So she's like she's volatile. Okay, Alicia seems volatile to me, or to me, I don't know. Like I've only seen her through the eyes of her children, and Ian's experience too. Mm, Joyce, Joyce, Joyce is so fucking removed. I feel like Joyce is even just like a nerd to a very large extent. So first of all, not nerd in that sense, but like I feel like she's kind of atypical amongst all of them. Yeah, she has a lot of grudge towards Alicia, which is kind of weird because it's weird, but I think it's typical also for the wife to resent the new wife or the mistress. Is typical, it's normal. So, but Joyce, for her to be money grubbing, I don't think she's money grubbing in that sense. Like she's not so deep. Like her greed does not run so deep. Yes, I don't think I agree with Ronso. She doesn't care about Ian. She doesn't care about Ian, but she cares about her own. Like she wants to take care of for the rest of her life. So she doesn't want Malcolm to finish the money. I think his work, but they're not seeing how much he has. Like this guy is a gold. What do they call it? Gold. I'm looking for a lot of words, bro. I need to increase my vocabulary. I need to do better at my vocabulary. But anyway, Joyce Greed does not run too deep. Donald looks like he would be a pawn, like an unwitting pawn, because like maybe when it comes to realizing that, oh, you use me to do so thing, you get, because all these people are pawns in the sense that they can easily give away information of where their father is, what he usually does, his habits, because they resent him a lot. So they can just talk about him in public, they talk about him to anybody that just pros them a little bit. But Donald, I feel like Donald could be an unwitting player in this whole scheme, in the sense that he needs money for his children's school fees, even for his own lifestyle. He's living above his means and he's trying to keep up appearances, which means he will never make it. He will forever be scrounging, but that's another thing for another day. But those are my suspicions, okay? So I'm going to put up the picture, like I'm putting up a picture of the wives. Oh, Lucy and Edwin. No, Lucy is married to Edwin. Lucy is the second child of Vivian. She also seems like she could be an unwitting pawn in somebody's schemes because she's desperate. She's no longer writing. And even if she were, there's no money in that thing she's doing. Like the poetry she writes, her speaking poetry and all. So like there's no money there. I think all she has is her name and her achievements in the past. Then who else? What else? So I went Lucy and Edwin, but Edwin is much greedier. Like they have spouses. Edwin is very greedy. I think he could be involved, but he's not so smart. He seems kind of stunted by his own idea of himself. Like if he was more aware of who he really was, like if he didn't have such an over bloated ego, I would suspect him of his ego is too big. Like he will not be able to see past his own nose. Then there's Berenice. I've not met Berenice, we've not met Berenice. We're only seeing her through other people's experience of her and Thomas um perspective of himself, which is through her eyes. So Berenice is seems like she could be capable of that one where the car hits them in the street, where the car almost hit them in the street. I think she could be that desperate. But why she's desperate, I don't know. I think she just wants Thomas out of the way. She wants to get money and live her life. She seems like a very high society kind of lady, you know. So I feel like Berenice could be involved in Moira's thing, but for Kuchi's case, I keep maintaining that Kuchi did not have a natural, like the accident was intentional, like premeditated, you know. But I suspect robbing. I don't know. I feel something about robbing. I don't know why. So I want you to tell me in the comments what your conclusions are, so suspicions are so far. And then for the next week's video, I'm going to make a, like, before I start, I'm going to give in a small bit of review before we start, so that people that are starting from that video can, you know, have an idea. And if they want to go back and read, I'll link the videos in the description, the past videos in the description from where to start. So I'm going to put reading skills being developed in this title because, bro, it felt so easy starting today. It felt so easy halfway through, and it felt nice finishing. Like, although I stumbled a lot, and there were a lot of repeated sentences or phrases I had to go to properly get the feel of the sound of what they were saying. But bear with me. I am trying to, like, I don't know. I just enjoy what I'm doing. So yes. Bye bye.